literally at the beginning of the play, we're in Ballandine, which is the stately home owned by Sir John Wedderburn and his family. But we have a soundtrack which is it evokes Africa, and it's literally described by John, the guy who wrote the music, as the sound of the ancestors. So I think the theory is we see Omar as Joseph getting changed, and then we see the characters coming on, and we see John walking around the house, and he is almost haunted by these sounds of the pain of the people that he's enslaved. That's my take on it. Would you say that's?
Yeah, I'd say that's like almost like pretty much bang on. I just think the other part of the cries is almost like maybe what Joseph like kind of is experiencing, you know. It's like a calling for him to kind of like stand up almost like the start of a spark, as it were, and then as the play evolves, that thing just becomes a fire and the whole thing kind of explodes. But we start in Ballandine, and then we make our way through different places and parts of the house.
We have flashbacks to Jamaica as well, when John was younger and Joseph was younger, and where Joseph and John first met, when John literally purchased Joseph as a slave.
Want for freedom has always been inside him, but it's been suppressed to a level where he wouldn't think about it in his day-to-day. So right at the top of the play, I think it's just a sense of contentment, and this is just another day.
When we first meet John, he's literally disturbed. Stuff is coming, ghosts are coming back to him. So I would say he's pretty tormented, and I suppose in some way he wants out of that. From the start, he's got a new wife. He has a duty to have a child with his wife. He obviously wants the child. He wants a child, but he's impotent. So he doesn't want to be around her. He wants to be with Joseph. Now, whatever that relationship is, we don't really know. What the sort of undercurrents of that are, we don't really know. But he's pretty tormented, and I think in some ways he feels comfortable with Joseph. He's not tormented when he's with Joseph, but he's tormented when he's with his wife and when he's with himself and his thoughts. So I guess he probably wants free from that. Literally, the first dialogue scene is Joseph and John, and it comes out of these cries and this kind of whatever's happening internally with Joseph, whatever's happening internally in John. And the first conversation is a kind of, how are you?
It's almost like, you know, the thing you talk about the father and son thing. It's like, John, or Margaret more so wants a wife than John, because John already has a son. I mean, not a wife. Yeah. Margaret wants a child more than John, because John has a son already. Yeah. So, maybe. It's a strange one. It's a weird one. But that's a dynamic we find ourselves in.
Yeah, all I know is that John wants to be with Joseph, and he doesn't want to be on his own. That's painful for him, and he doesn't want to be with his wife. That's painful for him as well.
The first draft that we got for the audition is not the play that you see now. And I think we went through one draft and then another draft which got bigger, and then another draft that got smaller, and then another draft that ended up in being essentially the play that we have now, and then another draft which was the play that we have now. And even still inside of that, we made loads of changes. Like, it was almost just like a conversation. The first week of rehearsal was almost like a dramaturge type week, where we were just like chopping, changing, seeing what kind of worked. And obviously us as actors, we have certain things that we might want to hold on to, or we really like, so we bring it to the table. And it was like pretty much an open discussion, you know. It wasn't like a writer that was like, no, you can't change my work, etc., and that happens. But in this in particular, it was more of a group exercise to build the play, as it were, you know. It was pretty pretty seamless process, I think.
It was. Like Omar says, I saw different versions of this play, and it changed quite radically at points, didn't it?
Loads.
But in the end, between ourselves and Orla O'Loughlin was a big part of this.
Yeah.
And Garen as well, but our associate director too, and others. It was a process of stripping away rather than building up. Because May produced a lot of material, all great material, but we had to decide, where we were repeating ourselves, where, what exactly we were trying to say. So I guess that first week, all of us interrogated the play, didn't we? We all kind of, and we stripped things away rather than added things, I thought.
Like deeply interrogated. And I think like just to come back to the question about the character.
Yeah.
I'm not too sure I was kind of, or me personally, I'm not too sure I was really able to build a level of understanding for the character until we had that final, this is what we're kind of doing. Like throughout it, you get kind of twinges and, you get sort of feelings like impulses. But as far as building a character goes, I wasn't really able to kind of tap into that until we had the final product, because arcs change.
Yeah.
As we're chopping and changing, arcs change. So like I had an original idea, and then that went out the window 2 days after, and then I had another idea, and another idea, and then until we actually had the script down, that's when I was able to sort of.
Do you feel it came back to what you originally saw in it? Because I felt that for me, it went around the houses a bit, but then we got back to what originally attracted me to playing that part.
To a certain degree, I still feel like that opening scene, like, so we had a draft, right, where the opening scene was Joseph washing the blood off Wedderburn.
Yeah.
And for me, that was like an amazing scene. And that changed a lot of the play for me, because the arc's completely different from that moment. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
I think there were certain elements that we did go back into, but it changed a lot for me.
Yeah.
It did change a lot for me, but in a good way.
Yeah.
In a really, really good way, because I thought I was playing Joseph as this sort of like really emotional guy, and he was really like sort of in his head, but no, he's proud. And that's the change that came in the chopping and changing of the play for me.
Yeah.
It was almost like a level of status.
Yeah, and his involvement in the sort of the codependency and the complicity of everyone in this horrific thing, which is slavery. It doesn't work unless there's a sort of buy-in in some ways.
Yeah.
So John is a human being, and that's what attracted to. I thought May's writing in that was brilliant. He understands that. This whole thing is a much more difficult, knotty problem. If we go, these people are all human beings, rather than we just go monster.
Yeah. And then it makes an audience question a little bit more as well. It brings an audience in, like it involves them.
Yeah.
Because then they actually have to ask questions about themselves, and also about how they feel about John. There are certain moments where we've done the play and the audience members will laugh at what John says.
Yeah.
And then the next scene it flips into a completely different contrast, and then they have to ask themselves the question or feel bad about. They feel bad about the fact that they were on John's side in one moment. So it's
Totally.
For me, it's just my influences were kind of like my family, like, because before doing this play, like, my connection to my family, like, was a bit strained, and then I got connected to my family, and then this play came about. So even like the Jamaican accent, for one example, like that didn't, like this time last year, that wouldn't have been as strong or as thick as it is now. So I think family were a little bit of a sense of influence where I could find the voice. And I think once I found the voice, I was able to kind of find everything else from that. I did a little bit of research, but I didn't do too much research because I trusted in what we'd find in the room. And I think sometimes, it's just every actor's process. Like, and I didn't think I really needed to do too much research because first of all, there's not that much research on Joseph. And the big book that is called Joseph Knight by James Robertson is a book told from John Wedderburn's perspective. So I didn't think it was my job to read that book or anything like that because I wouldn't find anything real about Joseph. So I just trusted in the rehearsal space and what we'd find. Yeah, I don't think I did extensive research for this.
I definitely didn't. I mean, I read a bit about John Wedderburn, a bit around him. But I felt that we were doing something different. We were talking about, in the play, we were talking about things that you won't find on the historical record, which is about how they feel about each other. So the play becomes a sort of bit of a psychodrama at some point. But Wedderburn's backstory is quite extreme, but we don't. It's not. It's relevant to the play in that he's a damaged person, but then it's not useful anymore. Wedderburn's father was hung, drawn, quartered, and he watched that, which is a very. I mean, it's a horrific. He was like, he's eviscerated. He's butchered whilst alive, and Wedderburn watched that happen. But now I'm aware of that, but I'm not sort of going, thinking about this. I'm just not, because it's not useful to us. But it's useful in the sense that this is a guy that he's been brutalized, and he brutalizes other people. But slavery has brutalized him as well. I mean, he's a man that came from something to nothing, and then went away and brutalized a whole bunch of other people to become something again. So that, I'm aware of all that, but it's sort of, in a way, it doesn't, an awareness of it helps, but you can't play it. To me, you can't play. You've got to play the situation of the play and these relationships. But I mean, really, both Joseph and John have seen things that none of us, hopefully, will have had to see, unless you're, in...
Or even imagine, like... Or
Yeah.
Like, even to a certain level of imagining. But even on the idea of slavery, I feel like it's very difficult for me anyway to like tap into that or even research that, because it's part of me. Yeah. And I just trusted in the fact of it being part of me that it will come out on stage, rather than actually having to like watch videos and all this kind of other stuff. I watched one video, but I just remember watching that video and going, nah, can't do that anymore. Do you know what I mean? Because it's too close. So I just think it just depends on, your style as an actor and what you want, really, as an actor, and how it helps you. It's all personal, isn't it? Yeah, it's all personal.
For me, it's always about what's useful.
Yeah,
what's useful and what's not.
Yeah. It's funny, we had movement in.
Yeah.
And I think movement really helped me personally, because my things are voice and movement, posture or whatever. So I think those two things there really helped me. A movement, we went through like different levels of circumstances, dreams, nightmares, that kind of stuff there, desires, and just kind of encapsulating that in the body. And I think that was something that really helped me. I remember after that session, I felt a lot more connected to Joseph in a way that I hadn't been connected to him before. And I think from there, it just kind of rose. But as far as like techniques go, we had fun in the room, man. We had so much fun in the room, and we built rapport between everyone. And once you have a rapport, once you have a level of rapport and trust in the room, you feel free to do anything, and I think that's the biggest technique that she kind of used. She made us feel really, really comfortable in a play which is uncomfortable. Yeah. I was thinking I was coming in here, I was going to be doom and gloom all the time, but we had a really, really nice time doing this. Well, obviously Annie, because Annie, I get her pregnant and we have that child, or supposedly have that child, and we fall in love, and that's the catalyst. That's the catalyst for Joseph wanting his freedom even more so, and that's where it all comes to a head or whatever. But for Wedderburn, he's my father. He's my only dad I know. He's the only dad I know. My dad was taken when I was younger, and he's been so good to me in a sense, So I don't know who's on top of that, but it's between those two for me.
It's like one keeps you, and one releases you.
Yeah, and it's the pull. It's the pull between both of them, because he doesn't like. One thing I know about Joseph is he doesn't like attacking Wedderburn.
No,
he doesn't like that stuff.
No, he doesn't.
He doesn't like that at all, because he is appreciative of everything that he's been given, which it sounds sick, really, if you say it, if I say that, do you know what I'm saying? Because essentially he's a slave. I go back to this phrase a lot. He's a privileged slave, and those two things don't go hand in hand. So I know he doesn't like doing that because he sees him as his father, but he has to do that, and that's the thing that kind of, and it's Annie that pushes him to those levels where he gets his eyes open. So it's a mixture, it's a blend between both of them. When she says, "I'm with child," yeah, that's the change. Yeah, no, that's definitely the change because he understands, like, and also he's young. He's 19 at this point. So the idea of him having a child and him wanting to be free to support that child is the biggest shift for Joseph in that moment. With Wedderburn, I think I've only found it recently, and I think it's the Stewart and Somerset case, because that's when I think he realizes he's a slave. You know, he's not his son or anything like that, or the way he's had it in his head. He's a slave, and it's the way you play it. You know, with the I think Orla gave you the note to kind of stress the word slave or whatever it is. It pings for Joseph because he gets the realization that it's like, I'm gonna be here forever.
It's the bit, isn't it? It's like they've never sort of hit the nail on the head, have they? They've never said, look, can I go free and when can I go free? And they've never properly addressed, it's been floating around, but they've never, because I think John knows he said this.
Yeah.
Right? He has said something. He knows he has.
He's teased it. Exactly.
Because there's maybe even a part of his head that thought, yeah, but when it comes to it, he's never going to let Joseph go because he doesn't want him to leave. And that's the moment when it's said and it's explicit. And then John saying to him, talking about this other case with an owner and a slave have become separated legally. He says, no, his master won't allow it to stand. So he's essentially saying, I'm not going to let you go. And that's the first time, isn't it?
Yeah, for Joseph anyway, yeah, where it pings, where it's like,
yeah.
I'm if I don't do anything about this, I'm going to be stuck. And then funny, the next scene, he realizes that he has a child, so then the levels just get ramped up and ramped up and ramped up. So yeah, it's a blend between those moments there. Maybe for me, because it's like
right at the top.
Yeah, Joseph gets to sit at a table. That's huge.
Yeah,
do you know?
It's a funny scene, isn't it? Because the way we played it is like, hey, this is all good, but of course an audience sees that as ownership.
Yeah.
So they're getting a totally different vibe off it.
Yeah.
And even in that first scene when we're playing, and we're being sort of, I'm going, oh, Joseph, and isn't it great? And it was great that I purchased you.
Yeah.
We have to play it in terms of the play that this is all good, but an audience sees a completely, totally different thing.
Yeah.
I always find that really interesting, that bit. Because I think, they'll be like
Because you get laughs on, sometimes you've got the laughs on, look what I've done.
Yeah.
You know, look what I've built. And it's like, really, it's been built off the back of slaves. You know what I'm saying? And obviously the audience laugh at it sometimes. And I think the realization after when you say purchased by, like, the whole play. Just watch out for the whole play. Because there's so many things